everybody, welcome to Jacob's Quest, and today I just got back from watching the Super Mario Bros. Movie, the brand new movie from Illumination and Nintendo, and this is the first Nintendo major Hollywood movie in the theaters that we've gotten in a long time since the 90s Mario Bros. Movie that was a big disaster. Which, by the way, that Mario Bros. Movie, it's fascinating if you ever look up anything about it. There's plenty of docu videos on YouTube about it, but it's fascinating. Anyways, this movie, I am proud to say I had an amazing time with this movie. Yeah, I was genuinely smiling the whole time. And it's interesting because if you go to your critic sites, your Rotten Tomatoes and all that, this movie is not doing so hot on Rotten Tomatoes for critics. But if you look at the audience score, it is the complete opposite. I think right now it's at 96, and then the critics have it at a 53. So it's definitely going to be one of those movies where the critics and the audiences are clearly disagreeing about something. And the most common criticism I've been seeing is oh, it has a really thin plot. It doesn't have much of an actual plot that's going on. Let me tell you this. If I were to take every single Super Mario property, video game, TV show, comic book, anything that's ever been done with Super Mario, I would say that this movie, as thin as the plot is, it is still more complex than any Mario plot has ever been. Because when you have 95% of the games are always just save the princess from Bowser, it's yeah, there's not much of a plot here, guys. There's not much of a story going on, you know? Some games try to put a little bit more, change it up a little bit, but it's still really the same. It's stop Bowser from doing the thing, And that is what this movie is. But I'm proud to say that, it feels more now than ever that the characters of the Mario universe have personalities. You know what I mean? If I feel like I could more accurately describe Bowser and Peach than I ever could before, because I think about okay, what is Bowser's properties? He's evil. He wants the princess, and he wants to get the stars, and he's evil. And while that's still true, I definitely got a lot more sense of oh, this is who he is as a person, So if anything, this movie, yes, it's got a real simple plot, and no, the characters aren't complex or anything, but it's compared to the source material, this is this is real deep stuff compared to the source material. So it's weird to criticize this movie for being thinly plotted when it's you know what this is based on, right? You know what I mean? That's anyways, I had an amazing time with this. It's yes, there's plenty of Easter eggs and background stuff going on, and references and little jingles from the GameCube and stuff like that, everyone was ooh, they did the thing, But this movie is more than that. I actually really enjoyed Mario and Luigi and Peach and Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong was great, and Bowser was amazing. And the actors they chose, and I know Chris Pratt was there, I know, but the actors they chose for some of these other characters, especially Bowser and Donkey Kong, I feel really fleshed out who these characters are supposed to be. And again, like I said, I feel now more than ever, I can actually describe who these characters are. They're not just it's Bowser. He's been around since the 80s. We know who Bowser is, but now it's oh, and now I know who Bowser is, So I don't know how best to describe that, but yeah, they let Jack Black fully go in on Bowser. He has a couple of really funny songs. They're not full songs, but they're little jingles he does on the piano, and they are amazing, and everyone was laughing and clapping, and I guess that's my thing, again, with the critics and the Rotten Tomatoes score that you might see. I've always said that when critics are looking at a movie, when they're criticizing a movie, when they're breaking down a movie, when they're trying to give it a score, right? They are looking at a movie for every aspect that you could critically sit here and analyze something, right? They're trying to analyze and break it down. So they're talking about, the cinematography and the screenwriting and the pacing and the plotting and the this and that, right? Whereas a general audience member when they go see a movie, they know if they liked it or not. You know, they know that if they were smiling, they know if they were clapping, you know what I mean? Like, they know if they came out happy at the end of the movie. You know, if they're like, yeah, that was a good experience, right? And that's the only thing that your general audience member is grading it on. If like, yeah, I enjoyed it, so I'm going to give it a good score because I liked it. I know that I was happy because, you know, it's a basic emotion, right? So I think that's really the difference that we're seeing here, is that like while critics with their really low Rotten Tomatoes score are breaking down this movie for having a really shallow plot and just being colorful nonsense, it's like I was smiling this entire movie. I had an amazing time with it, you know, and it's not just because like, oh, I recognized a reference. It was like, no, this thing was funny as hell. I loved it. And yes, the references obviously help, but like, that was more just seasoning on top of the movie I was already enjoying, was all the Easter eggs and references, you know? That's just like the seasoning on top. So yeah, guys, I don't know, I had a really, really great time with this, and honestly, I think this is just one of those situations where it's like critics are looking at different things than what the audience is looking at, clearly. And I know some critics out there are gonna be like, no, the critics are fans too. It's like, okay, yes, but you're not analyzing this the same way that the fans are analyzing it. You're in the mind space of a critic. You know, you're trying to break down every aspect of what a film is, whereas the audience is just going like, I had fun and I smiled, and so I know I liked it. You know, like, that's what it is. The other thing is that, like, when I think about what could a Super Mario movie even be, right? Because like I said, 95% of the plots of the games have always been, you save Princess Peach from the castle, you beat up Bowser at the end, right? And sometimes they'll do it in space. Sometimes they'll you know, they'll have a hat that comes alive and you can take over other things, but for the most part, it's generally the same idea, right? So it's like, well, how do you even make a movie out of that? How do you even make like a story and a plot, and how do you bring in all these other characters? Like, how do you get a Donkey Kong in there? You know, how do you throw in all these other things? And they did such a good job with it, and especially because they did not sit there and try to explain why things were the way they were. They just explained what it was. And what I mean by that is, like, he goes to the Mushroom Kingdom and they see all these different worlds, and he's like, oh, the bricks are just floating, and they like, all right, these mystery boxes, they contain power-ups. And they don't sit there and have long exposition as to like, oh, we see this world was created where the minerals in our bricks have anti-gravity stuff. Like, no, they didn't do anything like that. They're just like, yeah, this is, you recognize this from the game, this is how it is, and this is what it is. And you know, for maybe people who don't remember the games, it's been a while, yeah, remember the box with the question mark has the power up, and you touch it, and then if you get hit, the power up goes away, so you have to go get a different power up to get powers again. You know, like, that, it's real basic video game stuff, because that's the logic of it. You know, like, again, the source material is really simple, guys. You know, there's not much like logic put into it. It's just, that's the way it is. The mushrooms make you grow. Why? Doesn't matter. You know, so like, that was the strength of this movie, is that like, they didn't sit here and try to over explain anything that didn't need an explanation, because it doesn't honestly have an explanation. It just doesn't. It never has, right? Like why does Mario smash bricks? He does. He just does. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? So, anyways, they did such a good job of just like, it is essentially stop Bowser. He's got the star. This time he's captured Luigi instead of Peach. And I will say this, you know, I do wish Luigi had a little bit more screen time. He gets a good amount at the beginning and he gets a good amount at the end, but for a lot of the middle part, he is kind of like left to the side because he's the one who has been captured, right? And I guess that's kind of unavoidable, because like, you need a reason why Mario wants to go get Bowser so badly, right? But yeah, just everyone was fantastic in their role, and this movie's gonna make a lot of money. That's the other thing, is that like, I went to this, and I posted this on Twitter, this showing, it's Wednesday, not Thursday like normal. This early, you know, the night before showing, premiere day showing, more people were here than have been at any of the other movies I've seen this year. more than John Wick 4 or Dungeons and Dragons or Creed 3 or anything like that. Like this movie theater was almost packed, you know. So I'm like, okay, this is gonna be a big movie, and I can already see where they can go for sequels, and there's just a lot of stuff they can do here. And that's my thing, is that, like, look, the critics might not like this movie, but this is, especially if you've played a couple of Marios, not even like all of them, not even like the new ones, you're gonna find a lot to appreciate here. So yeah, I had a really great time. This is essentially, there's not much more you could do in the sense of like, well, how do you make a movie out of Mario? It's like, this is pretty much it. This is pretty much all you can do to make like an accurate video game Mario movie. You know, there's not many more ways you could have mixed this up and created a narrative out of it. It's like, this is it. This is what Mario is. You know, it is simple like this. It is like, you present the world as it is, and you know, they do put some more little bit of things in there. Like, for example, they kind of explain, like, well, Peach is a human, right? But she lives in the mushroom world where the toads are, and they're like mushroom people. You know, they're, you know, toadstools, right? So, you know, and so you kind of get this explanation of like, oh, okay, so she came from somewhere. They don't definitively tell you where, but she did come from somewhere, and she is a human, so that explains why she doesn't look like they do. And that's something that even the video games have never bothered to explain, because there's not really an explanation. But you know, so even then, even without trying to like over explain things, the movie still gives you a little bit. You know, it's like, okay, here's a little bit of an explanation. The flying blue shells in Mario Kart, it's like, well, we made that a character. There is a Koopa who's blue, and that's not a thing from the games. I don't think there's ever been a blue Koopa with wings, right? But they made that a thing in this movie where it's like, oh, that's where the blue Koopa in Mario Kart comes from. So like, even though they're not over explaining everything, they are still giving a little bit of narrative to small things like that. You know, it's like, oh, so it was a character, and that's where the blue shells come from. Why they have wings? Why they go after the first place person in the Mario Kart? You know, so it all adds up like that. But yeah, guys, I had a really great time. It was funny. Everyone was clapping, like literally clapping at the end of this movie. And yes, there is a mid-credit scene and an after-credit scene. They're both pretty good. Both of them are pretty good. Nothing like major, obviously. You know, there's not like a Nick Fury or anything. But yeah, I had a really great time with this. So obviously, it's like, if you are a fan of Nintendo properties, if you've played Mario at any point in the last 40 years, you know, it's like, so yeah, go ahead and check this movie out. There's not really a reason to not check it out. You know, it's like, I don't know, it's just one of those weird instances where it's like, the critics' opinion on this movie, I can understand how they got to that opinion, but it definitely does not matter because it's so not the point of what this movie is. Anyways, yeah, those are my thoughts on Mario. It's exactly what it needed to be. It's everything that I think it could be. Like, I don't think you could make much of a better version of this. Yeah, they did it, guys. They did it. And this is gonna make so much money that I think we're gonna usher in a new age of Nintendo films. Is Illumination gonna handle all of them? I guess I have to imagine that they would, right? They're making Nintendo Land over at Universal. I guess they kind of would. So yeah, get ready for a Zelda, and I hope a Metroid. A Metroid would be so cool. God, you know, definitely maybe a Smash Brothers. That would require a lot more crossover stuff. So I'm not. Maybe they could do that. I don't know. But yeah, just a lot more Nintendo stuff. Ooh, a Pikmin. That'd be kind of cool. You could do like, yeah, have, what's his name? Olimar, the Pikmin guy. Anyways, you could do something like that. So many Nintendo games to adapt. Anyways, let me know what you guys thought, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.